So we continue with our text, which becomes more and more interesting, and we need years of study to understand this text, but we have to start somewhere. And this text is, in my modest opinion, one of the wonders of the Buddhist scholarship, as far as Buddha nature is concerned. How to combine the experience of the highest reality with the world we live in. And this is very necessary, especially in our time. So we started to discuss how we become aware. We have 5 stages of realization. We will then discuss them from different perspectives. That's what this text does. The 5 stages of realization are, in fact, the 5 stages of developing awareness. The essence of the mind is awareness. But we are in this mind, but we are not aware. So the comparison and meditation in the, especially the Yogacara tradition, is actually the meditation on the mind like the mirror. The mind like the empty space in which everything is reflected as it is. Ultimately, we don't need to do anything. But we are always doing. It does not mean that doing something is wrong. But we have to learn doing from the beginning of what the Chinese call Wu Wei, from not doing. The non-doing is a real doing, because from non-doing the elements are there, but not as we see them. We see them as something which is separate. But in the true reality, nothing is separate. This is also, in a way, the wisdom of the Greeks, the wisdom of the Chinese, the wisdom of the Indians. This is the wisdom of the old civilizations, which for some reason or other we have lost through our purely materialistic approach. We believe in the outside of being real. Therefore, in order to understand that the real can only be found inside, we have to develop awareness. And the first step in developing the awareness, we have learned, is when the evil thoughts arise, we do not let them to continue. That is awareness. That is body, but this body is not a real body, because there is still someone real who is suppressing something. So it is called in the scriptures a body which is really not a body. At this stage, we still cling to the continuity of the mind, which is a result of our past. And we cling to the words, concepts, names. So we believe that what we name is the same as what we experience. We have to learn meditation to see clearly that what we name and what we experience is not quite the same. So, due to this error, we create karma, and due to creating karma, we are subjected to the bondages of karma. It is impossible to escape. Now, we have 5 stages, but you should understand that these 5 stages, you cannot separate them. They are to let you understand how the reality is according to the Yogacara. We have explained that reality. We experience, so to say, 3 kinds of reality at the same time. We experience the reality which we establish as something which is standing there. That is called parikalpita. It is a reality fabricated all by our nama, vakya, akshara, by our names, by our sentences, by our syllables. The animals, they don't communicate by sentences, they don't communicate by names, but they communicate by syllables. And the syllables put together the names and the syllables of our language, through which we, so to say, decide what is there. And through these names, we then make a generalization and particularization. And we believe that that object is there and that it always continues. That today we are the same like tomorrow. And that we continue to be the same, and the table we see is always the same table. So, we cannot prevent of being completely victimized by our past experience, which we always carry together, bring with us, and judge everything on the base of it. Now, the Vasubandhu brings a very wonderful comparison. This relying on the names as relying on this parikalpita, on the reality that we hold by names and believe that it is really there, is like the disease of the eye. So all we experience, according to Buddhism, is dependent origination. Nothing exists apart from dependent origination. What is beyond dependent origination, that is to be realized. But even what is beyond the dependent origination can only be penetrated through the dependent origination. This is what the Buddha has realized under the Bodhi tree. So what we see through the diseased eye of our karma, holding to karma, through our continuity of the mind, through our past experience, which we believe to be the objective experience. That is like the paratantra, the conventional reality we experience. This is Kesara, she is like this or like that, I like this and I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that. This is very worthy of possessing, this is not worthy of possessing. We observe the world like this. That is our dependent origination. But this is dependent origination through the diseased eye. Then when we get rid of this diseased eye, then it is called the parinishpana, the perfect reality. The perfect reality is the suchness, as far as Buddhism is concerned. Suchness is just nirvana, but the non-dualistic understanding of nirvana. So we, so to say, we are the victim of the diseased eye. We have explained, like Visuddhimagga explains, this disease. The hospital is our body. The holding to Vedana is our disease. The holding to perverted perception is the cause of our disease. Then our will to possess something and to grasp something for oneself is the unsuitable treatment. And the consciousness is a diseased man, the patient. So, from the Yogacara point of view, this diseased man is because we hold to the name as being the reality. This is a Yogacara approach. But we have to understand this is only approach. So now we try to be better because we understand that we are bad. If we don't understand that we are bad, we will never try to be better. So this is also awareness, but this is awareness which still is completely attached to the illusionary idea that there is a real self, which sees the real world and that the self is standing and the world is standing. So this is the beginning, but this beginning is the most important. Now, as you may know, in Chinese Buddhism, for centuries and even now, is a discussion on the sudden enlightenment and the gradual enlightenment. You can see the same process from the perspective of the sudden enlightenment. You are never separated from the Tathagata Garbha, which is the Buddhahood hidden in your own mind. And when you stop thinking, then you understand that this Buddhahood is not based on thinking, but it is something which we cannot understand by thinking. But as long as we don't have some kind of realization, we will always very, very tenaciously, very, very convincingly be of the opinion that what we see is objective. So we rely on a completely subjective judgment, and this brings the disharmony into our mind and also into our body. All these unhealthy grasping and unhealthy anger due to the dust in our eye. So now we start to meditate. And we meditate based on our distinguishing mental consciousness. This is a real object there. You make the elements meditation, this object will actually disappear, but still you are connected with the meditation based on distinguishing the object as something real. So as long as you believe there is a separate object and the subject, that usually the disciples of who want to attain the state of arahathood or the pratyeka buddhahood, they usually still believe that that object which is there, like in Theravada Abhidharma, it is actually not there in the scriptures, but it is there in the method. You want to get enlightenment by the differentiating consciousness. So you meditate on impermanence. You meditate on impermanence, then you get clarity. Your mind will turn away from impermanence, but you still rely on the differentiating mind to turn away from impermanence. You regard the samsara and the nirvana as being incompatible. So, according to this is the non-dualistic tradition. So the problem is not yet completely solved, as long as you see the outside and the inside as being something different. But you will not rely anymore on the words, and you will not rely anymore on the continuity of the consciousness. You have realized something which stands. But you still contemplate on something which does not stand. Right? So, in order that the mind perceives something, it has to be born, right? When it is born, then it has to come, it is born due to causes and conditions. So these causes and conditions, they have to come to the stand, right? They have to come to the stand, and then they will be changing, and then they disappear. So these are the 4 stages in the development of the mind. It comes out of the bhavanga, you may call it, or alaya, which you normally do not see. It, like Lady Sayadaw, very great scholar, compares this to the throwing the stone up. You throw the stone up, as long as it has the power of the cause and of the power of the cause, it will go up. When it reaches when it exhausts the cause of going up, then it is like standing for the fragment of the moment, and then it will fall down. So first there is arising, then there is the standing, then there is the change, and then there is disappearance. So you can cause and effect, you can analyze in these 4 stages. They actually do so in Theravada, also in Mahayana. Now you go from the back to forward. The Buddha is the one who stands in the beginning. Where, because everything is born, you have learned from the Tathagata Garbha. Tathagata Garbha is help for meditation. Alankavatara says, if you we hold to the outside world, because we hold to the mind. We don't let the mind go because we don't understand the Buddhahood of the mind. So this is the skillful means for understanding the Buddhahood, the origin of the mind. Origin of the mind is identification with the movement. So now you start by cessation. You don't let the unwholesome thought continue. That is cessation. The next stage, if you take the stages separately, but you take them separately only to put them together, that is the sudden enlightenment. In one moment they can come together if you have deep understanding. That is Satori. Kaiwu. So, when you practice Vipassana according to the meditating on the impermanence, so you will get realization which is based on impermanence. Right? And you continue to meditate on impermanence. Everything comes to Nirodha. But you know also that which stands. You know Nirvana. But you know it as something separate from your Buddha nature. Here is we have explained, you have arising based on the karma, you have arising based on alaya. Here you have arising based on the Buddha nature. This is, in a way, Zen tradition. Everybody, the Buddha, the mind and the beings cannot be separated. This is Zen. In a way, it is also Dzogchen, Mahamudra. So, when you understand the individualizing consciousness, we will learn it after learning this. When you understand that the subject-object comes from the alaya, with karmic consciousness itself, and that this differentiation and the continuity is not real, you cannot rely on that, then you come to a subtle consciousness. In this text it calls it manas, but the manas is not what is usually in the Sandhi Nirmochana called manas. It is his own philosophy. That's why it must have been a especially intelligent man And many, those who study the Yogacara, they will not accept it. But it is believed that Ashwagosha was the highly realized bodhisattva on the 8th level of the bodhisattvahood, that is like Arahat. 8th Bhumi, Achala Bhumi. So his mind already does not move, and he can move the objects as he wants. He was on such a high level of awareness that some great meditators and scholars believe. So despite the fact that it is the most advanced bodhisattva past teachings, it was written in the time when still these ideas were not clearly expressed. But they are there, of course, you can find them. So, when you practice the bodhisattva path, you give rise to bodhicitta. When you have progress in the bodhicitta, you have realized the bodhisattva bhumi, you see the illusion of being the objective object and the subject, when you see very clearly that this body and mind are actually not separated. What happened? You meditate on that which stands. First there has to be disappearance, then there is a change, then there is something which stands. But it apparently it stands moment by moment, like the stone you throw into the sky. This moment of standing is like no moment. So you need a very, very subtle mind to distinguish this moment. It is incredible subtlety you need. Now it's only theory. But when you have the moment of clarity, it may come sometime. But these moments of clarity are very short. When you become a Bhumi Bodhisattva, then they last. When I was in Japan, I met some great scholars, because that doesn't matter, my teacher thought that I should also study in Japan and do so. So I met some great scholars who were also meditators. And I asked that scholar, who was also a disciple of the teacher, how did he get the realization? And he said, I was working in the kitchen and peeling the potatoes. And I only saw the potatoes. Okay, fine. It is also the realization, but if it is not very, very deep, and you cannot check, of course, how deep it is, so, of course, it is a realization, but this realization will not last normally. But if it is a real satori, it does not change. Then you will become a real Bhumi Bodhisattva. Then you are sure to become your consciousness will become suchness, really. Because you have the genuine experience of suchness. But in this tradition, of course, very difficult to verify. How do you meditate? I drink the tea, okay, I also drink the tea. I met the taxi driver in Taipei. He asked me how you are a monk. Yes. What do you do? I study and meditate. I also meditate. How do you meditate? I drive. Okay, fine. So this is Zen. Huh? So for Zen you need a very, very, very advanced teacher who actually has this experience. Huh? Then he knows. Huh? But it is a method. Zen is a method. That is very important to understand. And that method means that you are never in every moment, you never separated from the Buddhahood. Huh? That is a method, and it is can be a very powerful method, but can be also very powerful delusion. Huh? That is the disadvantage of this method. But when you study this text, you understand that it is a method. And here it is clear showing that it is a method. You cannot separate these stages. So when you have a genuine realization, you already, your consciousness can see how it itself creates the delusion of subject and object. This is not easy. So this is meditating on the standing. Huh? If you meditate like that, you always connected with that which stands, which is the suchness. The suchness moves, as we have explained, because of the wind of ignorance. But they, like very beautiful example, like the moving belongs to the water. Water is like the Tathagata Garbha, like the Buddha nature. And the suchness is like wetness. The water is moving, but the wetness remains. And water is moving, it becomes waves because of the ignorance. And this is very important for understanding Zen. And in a way, you can try also to connect it with the subtle awareness of the breath. You don't need for that to go into dhyana, but dhyana is very helpful. When you have clarity and relaxation, you can observe that actually when your mind moves, it has causes and conditions, but its nature is not moving. We have therefore explained this breath you are observing is not the breath, but it is the concept of the breath. You stabilize your mind on the concept and then you throw out the concept. So first you need an object to stabilize your mind. Then you meditate on the mirror. This is the stages the Bodhisattva Bhumi of Asanga explains. First you understand everything is a mind, but everything is a mind is only skillful means. It is explained by the teachers of Yogacara itself. Of course, if everything is only mind, when you die the mountains will be still there. Of course, there is no problem. But as long as you're experiencing through the mind. And through the mind which is deluded, when the delusion mind is gone, then you experience the real mind. When the delusion mind is there, you experience the waves. But the wetness remains, even in the waves. This is a non-dualistic approach. And it is very useful. But it is not a dogma. If it becomes a dogma, it becomes a problem. You hold to the illusion of Buddhahood, but you cannot hold the emptiness, just like you cannot hold the breath. So the next stage, you come to the beginning. If you come to the beginning, you are the fully enlightened Buddha. You just reflect like the mirror. And if you just reflect like the mirror, everybody who is reflected in that mirror, you can help. Because you just reflect him as he is. And you don't judge him, you just tell him what is to be done in order, according to his ability, to improve himself. Right? So this is the advantage of the non-dualistic approach. So let us read the text. I will try to translate it. First I have introduced its important content. Let me see how it is explained on the... So we have explained that on the base of awareness, we understand non-awareness. On the base of body, we understand not body. Or rather, on the base of the body, there is a no body. Everything is related. If there was not ignorance, there would be no wisdom. If there was no samsara, there would be no nirvana. The nirvana is only in comparison to samsara. It cannot exist by itself. Similarly, the body is only in relation to non-body. It cannot exist by itself. So, because there is body, there is non-body. So now, the beginning of the body, you understand, you have the thought which is harming you and may harm others if you cling to it. So you remove it. It is not enlightenment, but it is enlightenment. Because if you don't have a body, you cannot have no body. Very wonderful thing. Everything is relative. But because at this stage you still don't understand, so it is not a real body, it is a body, non-body. This is what it explains in these words. So we have these terms which are very important if you want to study this Chinese tradition. We have the original enlightenment. Due to this original enlightenment, we have non-enlightenment. If there was not original enlightenment, how could there be enlightenment? That is a non-dualistic logic. So this original enlightenment is called Pen Jue. Our friend is learning Chinese. Pen is root, and Jue means awareness. The original awareness. When you go back to the original awareness, your mind becomes suchness. Now we are deprived of this original awareness, therefore our mind is not suchness. But we can have the moments of clarity when we see that actually our mind is suchness. But as long as these moments of clarity will not last, it will not be real realization, it will be something like realization. Right? So, because of this original enlightenment, there is non-enlightenment. But on the base of non-enlightenment, we speak of the process of enlightening. This is called shi jie. Shi actually means to begin something. Begin enlightenment. Here it means process of enlightenment, because everything we experience is a process. That which is not a process, that is to be realized. So that's why it is called shi jie. You are coming to the process of enlightening. That is why you learn in Zen, the best mind is a beginning mind. When you already think you know something, you are off the path. So the Daimon Sutra teaches, if you think you are a Sotapanna, you are not a Sotapanna. If you think you are a Bodhisattva, you are not a Bodhisattva. This is very helpful. And this idea can bring unity to Buddhism. So, when you come by this process of enlightening, by shi jie, when you come to Jiujin jie means the ultimate, Jiujin is ultimate, then you are a fully enlightened Buddha. You come back to the beginning. This beginning is unspeakable, ungraspable, unknowable. We are chanting the Heart Sutra. In emptiness there is no knowledge, there is no attainment, there is no non-attainment. This is a meaning. And that's why it has resounded so much in China, because it is very similar to Taoism indeed. We don't know what is natural. When you learn Taoism, you learn also this principle. We don't know what is natural. Therefore, we take as natural that which has name, but the Tao has no name. In other words, if we believe that the Tao is based on names, we don't understand the eternal Tao. This is very easy to understand for the Chinese mind. So, to repeat again, because this is very dense and important, so I translate again from the beginning to the end, but this time very quickly. So, when we are ordinary non-realized beings, Putujana, Prithagjana, we will be able to know that when the previous thought that has arisen is a harmful thought, a bad thought, then we are able to stop it and not let it continue in the next moment. Although this, strictly speaking, cannot be the bodhi, cannot be real awareness. Nevertheless, it is a body, or even though it is called body, nevertheless, it is not, so to say, the real body. So the disciples of the two vehicles, which still believe in the real object there, and the bodhisattvas who have not yet deeper attainment, who have not yet realized their faith in the bodhicitta. To realize the faith in the bodhicitta is very difficult. That's why I have told the story about Shariputra. Even the wise Shariputra, when some obstacles come, we can still be diverted from the way. But according to this principle, when you realize the bodhisattva bhumi, which is more difficult than the sotapanna, or even more difficult than the sakadagami, then you can be diverted and you only think how to finish with this suffering of samsara. Everything else is of no importance, no? So the beginning bodhisattvas and the disciples of the two vehicles, which still rely on the real object being there, separate the object and the subject. So they, based on their differentiating consciousness, which is in this tradition a rough consciousness, not a subtle consciousness, even though it is not quite true, because we can, when we are advanced in meditation, we can see that this mind arises from the bhavanga. It is not so difficult to know, but still it arises because the object you take as something real, no? If you don't take it as real, it does not arise. And that is a true realization. So this is called the seeming realization, based on the thought that still divides between the object and the subject, between the body and the mind. So the first knowledge in Vipassana is nama rupa paricheda, the body and the mind as being something different. But in this tradition, this is only a gross kind of differentiation. But this is only skillful means. If we cling to these concepts, then we are also led astray. This is explained even in this tradition. It's only concepts, but very useful concept. If you are Dharmakaya Bodhisattva, the Bhumi Bodhisattva, the first Bhumi and higher, that is called Bhumi Bodhisattva, when you have direct realization of the suchness, then your mind contemplates on the non-change standing as a reality. That which changes is completely illusionary. But the Arahat also regards this world as completely illusionary. But still, he may believe in individual realization, therefore he behaves in a different way. That is why the Transcendental Wisdom Sutras teach that the individual realization is still an obstacle in the removing the Jnana Avarana. There are two obstacles to becoming a Buddha. The Klesha Avarana, the obstacle of defiled afflictions, afflictive obscurations. And there is a Gneya Avarana, the obstacle of the objects of knowledge. In order to become the perfectly realized Buddha, you have to remove not only Klesha Avarana, you have to remove also the Gneya Avarana, the obstacle as regard to the objects of knowledge. These objects of knowledge, they are not different from the mind. This, in a way, the Madhyamika can also accept. But the alaya mind is unreal, but everything is unreal. So, if you become the Bhumi Bodhisattva, you have directly realized the suchness. Then, Jue Nianju, you meditate. The Nian here means meditate, but mean also to think. We have explained that meditate does not mean, as in Western concept usually means meditate on some concept. Meditate means simply to connect the mind with an object. So when you become a realized bodhisattva, you contemplate on that which does not move, the Buddhahood. When the mind moves, you immediately know that it is not the real mind. That is mean what he says. He contemplates the mind which stands, and he immediately also understands the mind which is changing as something completely illusionary. So he can abandon the rough kind of differentiation based on meditating on the images, meditating on the objects as being something real. For this tradition, everything we can think about is only images in the mind, no? So they abandon the rough differentiation, and that is how they follow the state of partial realization. They are not they are irreversible in their progress to the perfect Buddhahood. Because they meditate on the mind which is Buddha, which always stands. When it moves, they see very clearly it is not real. When the Bodhisattva has succeeded in all the stages of the Bodhisattva path, this explains also the sudden enlightenment and the gradual enlightenment. The sudden enlightenment cannot be separated from the gradual enlightenment. Why? Because we have explained the mind is in one moment you have all these stages, and the one moment cannot be realized from, cannot be separated from the process. And one moment is a key to enlightenment in this tradition, that is Zen. When you understand the one moment, then you understand that when the movement appears in the mind, this movement is not real. That you can only understand when you understand the one moment. Therefore, eka samskara samadhi. So, in this case, he has, if he comes back to the beginning, he has fulfilled the skillful means. The practice of Bodhisattva is a practice of wisdom and skillful means, no? That is like in Hindu tradition, Shiva and Shakti, they have to be together. The skillful means and the reality, they are inseparable. So when he comes to the beginning, then he understands that this Xiang, this image in the mind, he has penetrated completely. It is not there anymore. He just reflects. So he stays in eternal presence. So, staying in eternal presence, he has removed even the most subtle thoughts, even the most subtle vitarkas. He does not need any vitarka anymore. Vitarka means uha. Uha means, from the root uha means to weighing. He does not need to weigh in the mind. What is right, what is wrong, what I want, what I don't want. We are always weighing in the mind. So we are subjected to some unrest. This is completely abundant. You don't weigh anything in the mind. Vitarka is this meaning originally, from the root uha, which means to weigh. Even this English way comes from the same root, the weight and so on. We weigh in the mind. In Russian, vaga, no? Vaha. Важит. Вагат, не? Как сказать по-русски? Нет вага. Pačesky vága, váha. Je to nie tak samo je. Okay, so means weighing. You understand weighing? Thinking means to weigh in the mind. But in case of Buddha, he does not need to weigh anything in the mind. His mind is completely empty. So it becomes suchness. So this means the ultimate awakening, the ultimate bodhi, Chu Chin Chie, Atyanta bodhi, we can translate into Sanskrit. It is Atyanta bodhi. There is nothing to do, no way to go. No more habits, just reflecting as the things are. So, he is here for the benefit of all sentient beings, because he just reflects what you are and what you need. This is the perfectly enlightened Buddha. This is compared in the sub-commentary to Brahmajala Sutta, translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi is also the kind of a Theravada Bodhisattva. He translated this commentary because he has a deep interest in. He always teaches that you cannot understand Buddhism without understanding how to become the Supreme Buddha. It is even in the scriptures. So it says that Buddha is like the sun. When you become a Pratyeka Buddha, you are like the moon. When you become the ordinary, when you become a great Arahat, you are like the morning star. When you are ordinary Arahat, you are just like a small star or a lamp. When you can be like on the way, so you are like a light fly. How did he say it in English? Firefly. Firefly. So if we become firefly, it's a great thing.
In the interest that some fireflies to be amongst us may light their lamps, just noting the time, it's 20 past 5.
Okay, so tomorrow we will skip over one part of this because we have so little time, and we will come to the analysis of the 9 types of consciousness that you know on the way to enlightenment, to penetrating the enlightenment here is to penetrate the delusion of duality. Okay?
Thank you. That is assuming we have some questions, no? We have the option to continue if people would wish to, but if there are some questions, please speak up.
Bhante, you said that the first step in developing awareness is when evil thoughts arise, we do not allow. The first step in developing awareness is when evil thoughts arise, we do not allow them to continue.
Yes, it is enlightenment, but it cannot be called the real enlightenment.
I mean, so that is a very advanced stage, not at the beginning, because that is very...
it is not easy.
Yes.
Unless we are very experienced, we let the evil thoughts continue. And so we let our likings and dislikings continue, and therefore we get involved in more and more karma. No?
And another question is, as we develop concentration, these negative feelings or feelings like anger and jealousy or whatever, is there this that they can also get concentrated?
When you learn the concentration in state of deep concentration, there is no akusala vedana. It does not exist in dhyana. When you attain the dhyana, you don't have any akusala vedana. And then you can stay for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours only in the kusala vedana. No defilement arises in deep concentration. Nothing.
Now, when you exit it, when you come to the ordinary world...
When you exit, so all kinds of defilements can come.
Will again...
But they will be very powerful because you have a powerful mind.
Yes.
So you will be more concerned with meditation. Many stories in Indian literature, even the rishis, they are seduced for a moment. Some beautiful woman there, they get terrible passion. Then they are seduced. Sometimes the Indra can appear in the shape of a beautiful woman. They become seduced. Even the rishi stays, goes like the bodhisattva goes. In older times they had to go to town from the Himalayas to collect some salt, no? So they live for some time in the royal garden. Comes the queen, sees the ascetics. They are especially interested in beautiful ascetics, the women. So he gets seduced, then he enjoys, but then becomes depressed. And because he's a rishi, so he immediately returns back to the Himalayas. And so there are many stories like that in Indian literature. Read the Jatakas also.
No, so I'm coming from a practical perspective as we go along the path and these anger and those kind of emotions get stronger, what do we do?
Yeah, this is your habits, no? These emotions teach you your bad habits. When you have more experience in meditation, that bad habits will teach you not to continue in them. So you reduce your likings and dislikings. The likings and dislikings, if they are connected with the obstinate idea of one real existing self behind them, they are the source of harm. If they connected with understanding of paticca samuppada, pratitya samutpada, they are just causing an effect, then you can just let them go. Then they will never last. But the realization of pratitya samutpada is still very superficial. You have not yet realized the other side. but it is still enlightenment. Hmm?
Bhante, the mind consciousness
Manas
seems,
consciousness, yes.
yes, seems to have the consciousness of all the other four, all the five vinyanas.
Well, this is peculiarity of this tradition. They, in order to make you understand how the mind works, they make this as a separate consciousness. So the root of the mind is alaya vijnana, like bhavanga. Because you identify with alaya vijnana, so you have manas. And so we distinguish the six consciousnesses on the base of manas. This is like similar to ahamkara in the Samkhya. You have the ahamkara and it will be there as long as you are don't get the clarity. It will be there. So similar, these manas will be there until you become an arahat. Then you have seen its rule. But these manas cannot exist in the lokutara citta. It can only exist in the lokika citta. It cannot exist in the supermundane mind.
So a Pacheka
Only in the mundane mind we have manas.
I see.
But if you become a sotapanna, you still have manas, but in the moment of becoming sotapanna, in the moment you become the sotapanna, at that moment there is no manas. And how when you practice the phala samapati, there is also, at that moment, is also no manas. How do you know you are an Arya? Because you can practice phala samapati. You can take nirvana as an object of your samadhi. But you don't remain in the samadhi like you don't remain in the jhana. But you can immediately connect with it. Just like when you attain the jhana, this impression in the mind is so strong, it is a kusala mind, that you cannot lose it. When you want to go to dhyana, you can go to dhyana. Sitting in the train, you can go to dhyana. Sitting in the airplane, you can go to dhyana. But it will not be a deep dhyana. But still, no akusala citta will come as long as you are merged with that object, which has made a very powerful impression in your mind. So, of course, then the result is that you become more fearless and more self-confident, and your problem will be more like a delusion. Right?
So an Arahant's mind or a Pacheka Buddha's mind or a Sambhasa Buddha's mind, they don't have a manas? They don't have a manas?
Yes, of course. They have penetrated the four-city of the self. When you become a sotapanna, you have only abandoned the satkaya ditthi, but you have not yet abandoned the other kleshas. There is still mana, there is still udacha, there is still kukucha, there is still tinamida.
Ruprag,
But you don't see them as something. There are two kinds of defilements in Theravada Abhidharma. Savastuka and avastuka. Vastu means base. When you become an Arya, you have savastuka klesha. You have the kleshas which have base in the reality. The base of reality is the mind. If you have not realized nirvana, then you have avastuka klesha. You have liking, and you are convinced that this liking, it is myself, it belongs to me. So you have terrible attachments, you have dislike, you are convinced this is me, this belongs to me, so you become angry very easily. You can even harm others, kill others when it becomes extreme. But in case of, if you realize that which is beyond, then it will come, but you know it is not real. So it does not last long. Right?
Okay.
So, avastuka klesha and savastuka klesha. Avastuka klesha is for the one who has not realized that which is beyond the world. Savastuka klesha is for the one who has realized that which is beyond the world. So this very important to distinguish. That is why in Pali, not in Sanskrit, putu jana means the putu means broad. As long as we are not Arya, our defilements can be broad if we are not noble Arya. But once you realize that which is beyond the world, then your defilements will be there. But you will see that they are avastuka, they have no base in the reality. The real reality is nirvana. The real reality, the nirvana is the dharma. That which helps to understand the dharma is also called dharma. Real dharma is that which helps, as far as Buddhism is concerned, to realize nirvana, to realize suchness. That is dharma. So when you meditate Dhamma, when you the object of your sati is Dhamma, so it is not what kind of tea you are drinking, but it means that which leads to the ultimate reality. That is also in Yogacara, that is also in Theravada. In case of Madhyamika, it is a little different. Madhyamika does not make this kind of distinction. The mind is also not real. But the mind has to be real for Yogacara in order to recognize that when you leave the illusion of a real subject and object, you realize a real mind.
But if I'm understanding the question correctly, it relates to the unique use in this text of manas to
Yes, manas.
five aspects, some of which are familiar from other schema that use.
Yeah, we will talk about the manas according to this text. It is very original, but it has influenced very much the Chinese Buddhism, this text. So you have 5 aspects of the manas. When you penetrate them as they are, you are become the Bhumi Bodhisattva, the realized Bodhisattva. Tomorrow we will talk about it. Okay?
quick question.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your kindness, Bhante. I want to say I'm very grateful for your presence and for your teaching. It's very helpful. Just the question is that if we have this awareness, you suggest to actually only observe, not to attach to anything, not to attach any experience, so anything is arising and passing, and the mind is like still like observing, means that we should not develop anything like, for example, like love, compassion, and this kind of qualities that are already there,
Well, this
or
is
it's something to be developed.
This is a misunderstanding. You have to start somewhere. I have explained Sabbe Dhamma Chanda Mulika. All the Dhammas are based on desire. If you don't have desire, nothing will be there. But you have to distinguish between the desire which is wholesome and desire which is unwholesome. When you become the Buddha, you don't need any desire. But now you are not a Buddha, you have to start with a desire. But there is a wholesome desire. That's why Buddhism distinguishes between the Kama, Chanda, and the Dhamma Chanda in Theravada Buddhism. And you have the same thing in Sanskrit tradition, Karma Chanda and Dharma Chanda. So it is the same. In order to practice, you have to have a Dharma Chanda. And how you practice depends how you develop it, no?
Because
in the Mahayana tradition, the Dharma Chanda you coordinate with the bodhicitta. So the meditation is the development of the bodhicitta. Because the consciousness, now you are learning, consciousness is the Buddha. The Buddha, the sentient beings, and the mind you cannot distinguish. This is what is this text about.
Thank you.
Someone else?
Right.
So then we go to meditation. Today we have talked more than enough. So half an hour meditation, and that will do for this afternoon.